Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game The First Course today. And thank you for supporting the show. All right, welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and today I have Chip Beauvais, the creator of my favorite 18-card game, Universal Rule. How you doing, Chip?
Great. How you doing, Adam? It's nice to be here.
Trying to stay warm.
Oh yes, yeah. There's another snowstorm coming, I'm afraid.
You know, I've been lucky here in St. Louis. It all seems to stay north of us this year.
Yeah, I'm in Rochester, New York right now, and we've been getting quite a bit of snow. So it'll be. I'm looking forward to spring. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I don't mind the spring when it's a little warmer and can get outside and, see people from a distance, but at least see people.
Yeah, exactly.
So for people who don't know who you are, who are you and what do you do for the gaming industry?
Sure. So my name is Chip Beauvais, and I am a game designer. I started designing games about 10 years ago, and I have yet to find a way to stop myself from designing games. So I'm most of the games I have are published through Button Shy, which makes wallet games, which are 18 card games that fit into a wallet or a purse. And I have actually two designs out with them. One is Smoke and Mirrors, which is a bluffing game, and the other is Universal Rule, which is a 4X game that you did an excellent job of covering all of the rules in the last episode.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. It is definitely one of my favorite games. I remember hearing you talk about it on a different podcast, and I was like, "What is this game? I must find this game." So I do. I love it. And I just wish that I had more adults around to play with right now, so could break in that singularity deck a little better.
Yeah, it's definitely it's not a game for everyone, but for the people that like that 4X experience, it's really designed to sort of hit all the buttons and be a really exciting and sort of swingy game to play.
Right now, one thing you said in an email to me I thought was interesting, and one of my questions is, do you board game at lunch? And because that's what I do, and that's what kind of my podcast is based around. And you said not only do you board game at lunch, but you used your coworkers as playtesters for Universal Rule.
That's right. So I didn't start off. I sort of developed a game group at work, um, not with the goal eventually of play testing new designs. But we really started off just playing published games. So Dominion was obviously a really big hit. Code names and games like this. So after sort of a couple of years of building up a a group of players, um, where I really got to know sort of their gaming styles and the types of games that they enjoyed. Then I started bringing in new designs that I was working on, and the feedback was really useful to me because not only did I um, not only did I get to see how they played the prototype that I was bringing, but I knew from past experience the type of design that they would look for, and that really helped me sort of gauge their gaming biases towards the feedback that they were giving me.
Sure, that's always one of the hard things to do. You need the feedback, but you got to be able to put it through some kind of filter.
Yeah, exactly. like you can bring a bluffing game to someone, and if they don't like bluffing games, then they're not going to give you the same quality of information as someone that's really in the target audience for the game you're designing.
Sure. So, how many people do you have at your office that you play with?
So I switched jobs about 2 years ago, and before that, um, we had a really core group that we had built up that was between like 4 and 8 people any given day, and those are excellent numbers because if
No, that's
you
great.
if you have if you go over a certain number, then you could break off into multiple tables, and there's a lot more flexibility into what you play.
No, absolutely.
Since then, I actually switched jobs, but I was recruited by another person I used to play games with. So the two of us played, would play games over lunch. And then the two of us recruited a third person that we used to play games with. So now before COVID happened, the three of us would often meet at lunch and play games together.
Nice. So, wait, third player adds a whole different dynamic to a lot of games. So, it's always
Yeah,
good if you have that third.
yeah, and um, there are a lot of two-player games too, because often one of us will be unavailable. So for two, we play Seven Wonders Duel,
Oh,
um,
yeah, it's a good one.
and um, and actually we both started playing Keyforge, and like swapping out different decks and stuff like that. So there's some good two-player options as well.
Yeah, we like to play a lot of Anthelion
Oh
with the
yes,
push pull.
yep,
Yeah, it's in your pocket world.
yep.
That
That
one's a lot
that's
of
right.
fun. And then we play a lot of Jaipur as well. But we keep a lot of two-player games. Button Shy has a lot of great two-player games.
Yeah, it's a good format for two-player games.
So let me ask you the gaming question. How do you pronounce the Settlers of what?
I pronounce it Catan. I don't know if that's right or not. Is that right?
As far as I've been able to tell, that's right.
It was actually on the news the other day. I was out of the room, but when I came back in, I was told that they were just talking about Ticket to Ride and Settlers. So
Wonder what the news story was. Great games you should buy to have at your house.
probably something along those lines. Yes.
So how did you get into gaming?
That is a good question. So when my wife and I were first dating, um, she and I are both really big fans of Star Wars, the movies and everything that goes with it. And she said, "I've got this game, which is," and it was the Decipher Star Wars CCG. And both of us tried to like read through the rule books and look through cards, and we just couldn't piece it together. And and it turned out that there was a group of people that were getting together to play Magic, and we had never played Magic before. But our thought process was, well, Magic is a CCG, and maybe if we learned how to play Magic, then we could sort of transfer that knowledge and play the Star Wars CCG. So we went and we learned how to play Magic and sat down. And I think they had us all do like a big draft at the end. And we were just hooked. And we've been hooked on Magic ever since. And of course, that led to finding other gaming groups, being exposed to new board games, and that led into going to gaming conventions. And there was a local gaming convention that had a game design contest, and that really
Oh,
intrigued me. So I put together a game for that, and that just sort of started the ball rolling.
And now it's just a ball that can't stop rolling.
That's right. That's right. So my wife and I have a 7-year-old daughter, and so for most of the past 7 years, we haven't been playing as many games as recently. But about within the last year or so, we've started playing Magic at night again. So it's
There
great
you
to
go.
you know take out some of the old decks and try to remember how they play.
Well, they change the rules and strategies so often with that.
That is true. That is something that we've found, and we've sort of. I was even like watching a podcast the other day, and I was like, "Oh, they changed the Mulligan rule again." So we try to keep on top of everything. But
If I came to your house, what game is on your table?
okay, so if you came here, you would see a card table set up with the stacks of Dominion cards, the standard cards for every that you play with all the time. They
Right.
just sit there on the table. I have a really nice wooden case that has, I'm not sure, but the first number of Dominion expansions from the base set through um, possibly through guilds, and they're all sleeved. And let's see. So next to that is a box for Codenames Duet, which my mother-in-law and I have been playing recently, and also Quacks of Quedlingberg, um, and Azul. Although the Azul box contains both, took the insert out, it contains both the first Azul and the second one, the stained glass one.
Nice. I'm always a fan of if I can get rid of the insert and put more stuff in there.
Yeah, I tend to try to keep the insert as much as I can, but my daughter and I are actually in the process of retheming Lords of Waterdeep, and it
Ooh.
has a great insert because everything fits exactly.
Yep.
But we've had to sleeve the card so that we can overlay our own information on them. And now that they're sleeved, they don't fit anymore. So we've had to get rid of the insert and bag everything. But it's a small price to pay to
That
have.
is a very interesting insert,
Yes. Yep. It's definitely
and
like you could tell it's designed exactly for that game.
and even their expansion is the same way.
Yeah,
Scoundrels of Skullport, I think.
that's right. I haven't well, actually I've played the expansion, but I don't own it, so I don't know what the insert is like.
It's an interesting idea. Like you said, you can tell it's specifically for that game.
Exactly.
No, I love Dominion. I've played a lot of the expansions. I haven't played all of them. I don't think I played anywhere close to all of them, but I do enjoy the game. I like the expandability of it and how you can just mix and match all to your heart's content and just have a really crazy game.
Yeah, there's a lot of um, Dominion has been the start of a lot of different design ideas that I've had. So I think there's a lot of um, it could be very fruitful to just say I'm going to start with Dominion and make one change to it and sort of see where that leads me.
So is that where you got your idea for your new game?
Yeah, so actually,
Because it's a deck builder, so I was
that's right. So the next game that's going to be published is it's called Jackpot Payout, and um, it started with the concept of what if we could make a slot machine themed deck builder, um, and a lot of game designs start with an audience in mind. So, for example, I was listening to a um, an interview with the designer of Nyctophobia, Catherine Stipple, I think. I might not have her name right. Anyway, and she said that there was a member of her family that she designed this game for, and my father is not really a big gamer, but you know, I go home and I'll have a new game with me, and he's always excited to try it out. And I thought a slot machine deck building game that wasn't that was on sort of the family weight of complexity would be a perfect game for him. Um, so that was one of the guiding principles of putting the game design together. But it certainly started with the um, one of the things I really like about Dominion and Kingdom Builder and other games like that, Sushi Go, is the idea that there are different packets of cards, and depending on which packets are in play, the game experience will be different. So you'll see
Hmm,
that also in Jackpot Payout, where there are different abilities and different sets of cards, and you can really tune the experience to be the type of experience that you and your game group are looking for. So
interesting.
there are some cards that are like attack cards, and they're they're sort of they allow you to interfere with people. But there are other cards that are really focused inward, where you're trying to optimize your own deck rather than slowing down your opponents. There are some cards that are very swingy, and you can kind of get away with that in a slot machine themed game. But if you're not looking for, if you want a more controlled experience, then you can swap those cards out for different cards that let you sort of look ahead a little bit more and reward careful planning.
And do you have a release date in mind yet for that?
It's going to go on Kickstarter sometime this year, sometime
Okay.
2021. I actually, one of the things I need to do this weekend is look over the card proofs from the publisher to make sure that everything is as it should be. So uh, yeah, so we're
Let's hope
getting
it
ready.
is.
Yes. Well, I mean, the most important thing is to find it now rather than after it's gone to
Yes.
print. Yeah, yeah, it's really tough. Like, that's the thing about publishing a board game is there's 1,000 things, and they all have to go right. If any of them go wrong, then then it's just going to be a disaster.
I know when we were trying to do an expansion to our first game, and we put the order in, and we got our prototypes in, and the first thing we did when we opened it up, we're like, "Well, these hay bales are not big enough."
Oh no! Oh
We're
man!
like, these are gonna have to be way bigger. And why is the sheep gray and not white? I want to change that color. And like, it doesn't affect the gameplay. It just definitely doesn't look right. Like the hay bale. I mean, we thought it was big enough, but it's like smaller than a pencil eraser. And we're like, that's a choking hazard for anything. And
Yeah,
then the sheep are supposed to be white, and they're like this gray. And we're like, yeah. I mean, like I said, it doesn't affect the gameplay at all. But you're like, well, when we get ready to make this, we're going to have to adjust some colors and some sizes here.
yeah. I was just gonna say it's really all about the product design as well. It's not just the game, but all the bits of the game really change the gaming experience.
So, what would be your 60-minute, if you had a full lunch hour, what is your go to 60-minute lunch hour game?
Hmm. That is a tricky question. If there's two of us, I think that Keyforge is probably that can actually run a little bit over 60 minutes, um, depending on.
We call those Friday games.
Yes, yes, that's a good name for them. um, but yeah, I think that's probably the one that I would look at.
So, if you were going to do a lunch 30-minute, a lunch half hour, what game are you going to pull out?
Um, I think I think one of the most popular games, and this works for, well, there's the code names Duet, but also code names for a larger group. One of the nice things about that is that you could definitely play a game in 30 minutes and probably flip
Hmm.
over all the cards and maybe get a second game in as well. But that's an excellent lunchtime game when you don't know how many people are going to come, because when you could start playing right away, and as more people come in, you just assign them to teams, um,
Yep.
and continue that way. So
Yep. We've been there, done that before.
there are definitely some games that you really have to, um, you have to have all the people up front at the beginning. But there are other games that are both good for spectators and also good for adding or removing people. Or if someone has to leave early, it's not going to affect anything as long as you still have some people on that team.
We've had those moments too. When people, I gotta get back to the for a meeting or phone call or whatever. You lose people. So another one you sent me was Cunning Folk, the button shy wallet game. So
Yeah.
I went to P&P Arcade, which is where I right now where I spend way too much money. Because they're only, I tell myself it's only $3, but then you buy 10 and you spend 30. Um, but I got it. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. But I like the idea of it. It's kind of a witch hunt game.
Yeah, there's definitely so another good lunchtime game is Coup. Have you played Coup before?
Oh, absolutely.
So
We had to like take our copies home because we were playing it too much.
oh yeah, that's an excellent game. So so the thing about coup is you know you have two cards in front of you, but you can claim to have any power you like. So cunning folk works in a similar way, but it combines um, the social deduction with a similar deduction to like clue. So what you're going to do is you have a grid of cards, and you'll look at one, and then you'll claim to have seen a particular character that will give you a certain power. Um, and other players can either
Oh
challenge
man.
you on that, or they'll let you get away with doing whatever that power is. And the what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out either where all of the good witches are or where all of the bad witches are. And the good in each side, good or evil, has one character whose power is if you can reveal all of the characters on the opposite side, you'll win the game. So you're both trying to deduce where everything is, and players can sort of shuffle cards around. And in social deduction games, you you really have to sort of look at the person and decide, can I figure out if they're lying or not? With cunning folk, though, you can. My favorite way of playing cunning folk is actually to take notes. So if I see multiple people look at the same card, then depending on what they're going to claim, I'm going to be able to deduce additional information about that card. So I
Nice.
see it as sort of an advanced version of Clue, where you're getting information, but it's not really information that you can trust. Um, and like any of these games, once you sort of get into a pattern and you're familiar with the game, then you can start second guessing, like, okay, the best thing to do is to look at a card and to claim that it's a good witch, um, because that's the power that you want to be able to use. But once everyone knows that that's the best play, then they'll become even more suspicious when you look at a card and say that it's a good witch. And sometimes you'll want to pretend to, sometimes you'll intentionally want to lie about the card, just to undercut what people are expecting. So it's a very clever game. One of the nice things is similar to Coup. Um, you have to be caught lying or be incorrectly accuse someone of lying twice before you're eliminated from the game. So the first time you become ostracized, and the second time you get exiled from the village. So
So your note to me said with optional cat noises.
yes, because there's an expansion, um, which includes a number of different characters that have new abilities, and it includes one cat character, and its ability is simply meow. So when you look at the cat, you just say meow. Or if you want to claim that it's the cat, you could just say meow. Because I think
Oh man.
there's one character that whenever you see that character, you must lie about the character that you've seen. You can never claim to have that character.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Yeah, I can't wait to get back into the office now and get this game in front of my group.
it's
That's gonna.
really really great.
And then your other hidden gem was a game called Mob Town. I looked into that one a little bit, so I put that on my list of games to keep my eye out for at the consignment shops.
Yeah, Mobtown is unfortunately out of print. The publisher went bankrupt, but it's one of those games where every time I play it, I think, why doesn't this hit the table more often? And it's especially good with, I think it plays up to 4 or 5 players, and it's it's just this this really neat game where you've got um, different sets of the illustration are different sets of characters. So you've got like sharks and snakes, um, perhaps weasels. It's been a while since I've played it, but that's I should mention the designers in all these. So Cunning Folk that we talked about before is by Jay Treat, and Mobtown is a game by Danny Devine. And he's actually one of the 3 designers that's behind Circle the Wagons, which is another
Oh, I like
Button
Circle
Shy
the
game.
Wagons.
Yep, yep, that's a really really strong design. A lot of
Yeah,
interesting game decisions packed into a small format.
yeah. I like the idea of like laying the cards on top of each other to cover up symbols to get other symbols to touch.
Yep, yep. And the combinations of different scoring things, that's very similar to, in my mind, it's very similar to the thing that draws me to Dominion and other games where Kingdom Builder is a great example, where the different victory conditions are really going to color the game and give you different types of experiences.
I'll have to keep my eye out for Mob Town. You said you're gonna the jackpot payout is gonna be on Kickstarter. Are you regularly on Kickstarter as a backer or creator or both?
I am. I back a lot of things on Kickstarter. I will say that I actually have a game that's on Kickstarter right now. So
Oh no.
it's yes, it's 13 hours to go. So I'm sorry for everyone that's listening to the podcast that well, perhaps you missed out on it. There's over 2,000 backers, so perhaps you did back it. It's the Button Shy Wallet Game reprint campaign for 2021. And the bluffing game that I mentioned before, Smoke and Mirrors, is getting a reprint through the campaign. So that's really exciting. And also the game that you mentioned before, the push pull game, is also one of the wallet games that's getting reprinted. But I
I
will
need to
say,
get the other what do they call them? Races or whatever, like the folks or whatever for Anthalion, the little extra add-on
yes,
decks.
yep, because it has the expansions as well as the base games. Now, one of the nice things about Button Shy is if you miss any of their Kickstarter campaigns, it's probably less than a month away before they'll have their next one for another wallet game.
Yeah, Jason's very busy.
Oh yes, yeah, very much so. I've also run a couple or rather, I've run a couple puzzle-related Kickstarters. As I mentioned, I changed jobs about 2 years ago, and I had a small window of time between jobs. And during one of those weeks, I ran a Kickstarter during Kickstarter's. They had a campaign where they wanted you to break the format of Kickstarter, so do something new and interesting. And what I decided to do was use Kickstarter as a platform for sort of like a puzzle hunt, but it would be multiple sets of puzzles to different teams of players. And the idea was that in most Kickstarter campaigns, you raise the money, and at the end of the campaign, you start the process of delivering stuff to the backers. And my idea was to turn that around so that the experience of the Kickstarter campaign itself was the reward. And when the Kickstarter ended, that was it. There was nothing after the Kickstarter. So what you got for backing the Kickstarter was you got access to all of these puzzles that you were challenged to solve over the course of the week. And there were different teams that people could join, and you would work with your teammates to try to solve different word puzzles. And then the words that you got out of each set of puzzles would lead you to another keyword, and there was also a pattern to all the keywords as well. So
That's awesome.
it was a ton of fun to put together, and to watch people play and get really excited about it. It was
That's really
also
cool.
it also turned out to be a lot of work.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna ask. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm that smart to come up with that much stuff.
well, I was really glad that the timing worked out perfectly because I was between jobs and really had nothing else to, or I mean, relatively speaking, had nothing else to do but just sort of dedicate my life to running that Kickstarter for a week. And
Yeah,
it was
Kickstarter can take over your life.
yes, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today, Chip.
It's my pleasure. This is great. I really did enjoy um, your description of Universal Rule. It's fairly complex, but you hit all the rules exactly right. And I was kind of thinking, I mean, I've demoed the game to a lot of people and introduced the game to a lot of people. And I was thinking, the next time I have to teach this, I'm just going to bring along a recording of that podcast and just be like, here, listen to this guy. He'll explain it for you.
That's awesome. No, I do. I love the game. I just there's something about it that when I sit down to play it, I don't win a lot, but man, it doesn't matter. And like I said in the podcast, I think what I like best about the game is that just when you think the game could stall out, the mechanics force you to keep going and start attacking because everybody's always afraid to attack, right? That's
Yes.
oh, if I attack, I could lose everything. Well, but you can't just sit back because if you just sit back, it's a race to the money. And if you don't have the right planets, you're going to lose. And you can do the math in your head real fast and figure out that's not going to, I'm not going to win that. And then once the battles start happening and all the backstabbing, oh, that's the best.
Yeah, there's really two phases to it. And it was interesting um, as the game was designed at the beginning, I had two sort of opposite victory conditions. You could either win by destroying three planets, or you could win by amassing a certain amount of money, or by colonizing a certain number of planets and being able to keep them in play. And what I sort of came to realize is when we were trying to sort of get the numbers to work out, like the number of planets you had to destroy or the number of planets you had to have in play, that I really kind of wanted to award partial victory to certain aspects of the game. And that's what led to the star system, where individual planets would be worth a certain number of stars, um, and then obviously the universal rule card for dominating in an attack is worth a certain number of victory points, and that really opened up um, opened up a lot of levers for being able to reward certain behaviors in the game, and also a lot of interesting abilities would either give you stars or cost you stars. So that really allowed me to put together a game where you can't really win just by just by sort of turtling and building up your own empire. You,
Turtling's a good word for it. That's the
yeah,
guy you pick on.
exactly.
That's the guy I pick on.
Yeah, yeah. But you also, if you're only ever attacking, then that's not necessarily going to be the
No,
easiest road to
it's
victory
not
either.
sustainable.
Exactly. So, uh,
So I meant to ask you also. I have character pack 1. Is there a character pack 2 on the horizon?
that is a good question. You would think I would know what all the expansions are. I don't believe I know that we kicked around ideas for different characters. Um, so I don't believe we released a second pack. If we did, it would probably be on Board Game Geek somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think
But
it's
we
up there yet. I'll keep my eye out for it though. Don't you worry.
but we looked at after the initial game and expansions. Um, um, we really looked at expanding the number of planets because that's really the core of the game. So the second wave is 17 new planets and a new edge card, and then Singularity, as you know, is 17 additional planets and a card. And Singularity was really designed both as um, each set is standalone, but Singularity
Yes.
was designed with a focus on solo play. So it works if you're playing with other people, but it was really designed with solo play in mind. And as things turned out, there's a lot of opportunities to play solo games over the last year.
Yeah, yeah. I just like to take all 53 planets, shuffle them together, and deal out and let the chips fall where they may.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then
Because I know that you've carefully balanced each deck, and so just to throw them all together and let the balance get completely off, man. Because like I said, you don't even know what cards are in play until you see them all, and your strategy may have to shift dramatically.
that's right. That's right. And it gets back to Dominion again because based on the set of 17 cards that are available, different strategies will be stronger or weaker. And it's really something that you've got to respond to as you see what your opponents are playing, and also as you explore and find out what opportunities are going to be available to you.
Yeah, it's just that's what makes the game so fun is when you don't know what's in the deck, and the first couple rounds you're just trying to ferret all that out. Like what planets are even available this time, and how can I combine those together to win this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then let's not forget it all comes down to who just wants to throw everything they got at attacking for the edge card.
But attacking is always a risk.
Oh yeah, especially when you play with the character pack.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever successfully vanquished them, so you
Yeah,
always end up
there's
losing stars to everybody.
yeah, it depends because then the incentive for your opponents to stop you is really strong. So you've got to be, but the best sort of play um, is not just looking at how do I want this specific attack to um, to resolve itself, but also looking at what are the next two turns going to look like, right? So you can attack someone and goad them into a battle and not use any of your resources, but really you weren't attacking to get the edge or to win necessarily, but you are attacking to draw out some of their resources.
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of different ways that you can approach the game.
Oh yeah, it's a blast. And like I said, we love it. We play it a lot. Just sad that I have an 8 year old. He's not quite, I think, not quite up there yet to play that. So I'll get it on. I'll get it on the table again. I'm positive because once my podcast said, a lot of my friends are like, "Why haven't you shown me this game?" And I'm like, I honestly don't. I don't know why. I mean, go buy it. It's like $3 on PNP Arcade.
Oh, that's great.
How can people reach out to you if they want to get in contact and see what is going on with the Flying Sheep?
Sure. So I am not as active as I used to be on social media, but I am still on Twitter. My handle is the underscore flying sheep. That's THE, the underscore symbol, FLYINGSHEEP. And I check it pretty much every other day or so, although I don't post as often as I used to. But certainly, if you want to keep in touch for when Jackpot Payout is going to be coming out, definitely come and follow me, and you won't miss it.
Absolutely. We'll have to do that because I'm interested in the idea of the deck building slot machine. So that'll
Yeah.
definitely suck me right in.
In fact, when I sent the prototype to Michael at Puzzling Pixel, this is before he had signed it. Um, I really want to emphasize um, the mix and match nature of the game. So I took one of my small Dominion expansion boxes, and we were talking about inserts earlier, so that it had the inserts where you could stack different sets of cards. So I sleeved my prototype and put it into those separate things so that I could sort of emphasize, one of the key features of this game is being able to tune the deck that you're playing with to match your group's play style.
I think that's a great idea because every like I that's what I like about my group is that we have so many different players with so many different playing types. So when we play test games, uh, our next games at the office, we know that this guy is going to try to bull rush the game, and this guy is going to try to find every loophole in the rules that we've written, and this guy is going to do this and that, and then once we kind of fine tune it a few times, then we get a really good game about 3 play tests in. We got something we can really start working with.
Yeah, yeah, and I've seen that. I've seen that in my own group that's been playtesting this game. In fact, there's one victory condition. It's sort of an edge case in Jackpot Payout that I refer to as Jeff's rule, named after one of my coworkers, Jeff, who found a way. And it's really an edge case. It doesn't happen very often, but it's a really neat combination. And when you pull something like that off, you should be rewarded with victory.
Yeah, I work on a worker placement game right now, and we have a guy that just he sits on first player. So I'm like, how can I make it beneficial to take first player? Because a lot of times we just like, who cares?
Yeah,
And so I'm like, well, how can I entice people to take first player so that somebody doesn't just sit on it? And then how can I make holding first player not necessarily a good thing? And so I've had to adjust a few things on that. It's funny how the people you play with can really help you shape your game and know what you want and don't want a game to do.
yes, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like playtesting to really get at um, what the game experience is going to be like. And it's really tough for
It also
playtesters.
helps you break your game and realize how bad it really is at its first rough. We'll call it a rough prototype, but really it's just a pile of garbage you think's a game.
Well, it's true. I mean, every game works perfectly in my head, and it's not until it gets down on the table that you start seeing where the flaws are.
Oh man, my first prototype that I brought to the table, I'd spent all this time doing inserts for an action deck, and then during the game, nobody even touched the action deck because it wasn't.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, that was. So then we had to figure out why not. How can we adjust it? How can we push people to that? And yeah, you find out real quick, man. This, like you said, it works in my head. Why doesn't it work now?
Yeah. And it's really tough on the playtesters as well because, you know, the game is always shifting under them. Sometimes even in the middle of the game, if it's early
Oh
enough,
yeah.
I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna, that, someone will play a card and be like, man, I can't believe I had to spend 6 credits for this. And I'll look at it, I'll be like, no, you're right. You're right. That should be worth 5 credits. Here, take one back.
We did that with our game. We're like, no, this isn't going to work. If we keep the rule this way, then because I was playing and I was like, guys, if we keep the rule the way it is, I'm never going to get the advantage of that.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, so, and I'm like, so only the first 2 players will ever have that advantage. Nobody else will ever get it.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm
Yep.
like, yep. And we changed the rule right in the middle of playtesting it at lunch. You have to do what's best for the game.
That's right.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again, Chip, for being on the show, and good luck with jackpot payout. And as normal, if you guys want to reach out to me, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame or send me an email at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And until next time, keep building those bridges.
Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3C Media and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
Average Joe's Gaming is a weekly podcast brought to you by us. I'm Joe.
I'm Tom. We talk about all things game-related. In this hour-long podcast, you'll discover what has arrived in the game room,
which Funko Pop Tom just could not resist, and maybe, if you're lucky, we might get around to talking about games.
Might.
Tune in weekly. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast formats.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.